Welcome to the Regeneration International Youth Film Festival workshop with Celia Jaspers, our wonderful New Zealand ambassador, who has flown in especially for the premiere last night at Alex Theatre. We had a wonderful evening and we're so excited to have this amazing multi-award winning filmmaker and television director here today to share with you such amazing knowledge. I've had a little bit of a sneak peek at just some of the things we're going to talk about, and I'm very excited to introduce to you Celia Jaspers.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Celia. Excuse the New Zealand accent. Hopefully you can understand me. I've been lucky enough to be in television and film for 30 years now. I started when I was 15, actually, quite by accident. So I may be the same age that some of you are now, and it is possible. It's very much happened by accident for me, though. I was doing work experience at school, actually, and I wanted to be an architect, and I was quite a good drafting and tech drawing and things. And I went to an architect's office for work experience week and did one day, and it was really boring, and I was so devastated. I went, oh, what am I going to do? That was my career, down the toilet. And then my dad knew somebody at the local TV studio, and he said, why don't you go along and we'll try and get a tour or join in for the day. And I like TV, I love watching it, of course, but I never really understood that it gets made behind the camera. This thing just appears on the box in your living room. And I hadn't really thought about all the things that it takes to make that. So I did a tour of the studio and I just went, oh, this is fantastic. This is the one. That was so fun. There were cameras and people running around and props and wardrobe and all sorts of stuff going on. And I just loved all the technical side as well as that blend of all the creative. So I asked whether I could come back in the weekend to watch a live show being recorded. And I turned up and I sat there in the audience, and then halfway through the show I saw a cameraman struggling with some cables wrapped around his big tripod camera on big Marconi camera, and I gave him a nod, said, oh, can I help? Do you need help? And he goes, yeah, come over. So I grabbed the cable and started cabling, and little did I know that's actually a job called a cabler. So it was just so fun being involved, and I think taking opportunities is definitely something I learned a lot from that moment. But at the end of the day, they all said, oh, goodbye everybody, and I'll see you next week. And I just turned up, and I kept turning up until someone realized I didn't have a job, and then they decided to offer me one, which was really lucky. So I was 15 at the time, and then I worked in the weekends while I was still at high school, and on this live show called What Now. It was a really famous show in New Zealand. Everybody in New Zealand knows it, and it was just the most amazing training ground. Really cool. 2 hours live every day, every Sunday or Saturday, I think it was at that time, and it's all go, and you just figure it out. And so I was definitely hooked at that point. I think I made my first short film when I was about 16 at school using SVHS machines, which is pre-digital, pre-cameras, all the stuff we've got now. It was literally 2 tape machines, play, pause, record kind of situation. It was pretty full on. And that's really the very early genesis of being an editor. And I learned that, I discovered that editing and directing go hand in hand. And I really loved those two things, and the technical and the creative together. So I've been self-taught a lot. I didn't get into film school, but TVNZ offered me a job straight out of school. So when I was 18, I joined TVNZ as a trainee and an intern. And I've been directing television for nearly 30 years and done a lot of different shows. I've worked in Australia in news, Channel 7 News, and at Foxtel, and back in New Zealand on all the networks and doing primetime television probably for the last 15 years or so. And only really recently I had a bit of an epiphany, probably through COVID actually, and decided I wanted to get back into film and really make narrative stories opposed to factual documentary type stories, which I had been doing. So these are some early days, just making children's TV and traveling all around New Zealand a lot in those days, and pre-cell phones and pre-digital. So it could be done. Back then it was very different. I think it's a lot easier now, I have to say. So there's a lot of access to technology and gear. And that bottom left-hand corner, that was my first Avid edit suite. Very expensive in those days, and very clunky, and it's just so different to what it is now. But I took out a loan and bought my own edit suite, and I had a contract job to another studio that I was supplying content for their show, and it was a big risk, and that was very much the beginning, I guess, of the business for me, working as a freelancer and having my own production company. I've been very lucky to do a lot of different jobs over the years. I think a lesson, I don't say no a lot, sometimes to my detriment, but saying yes in a good way, in the sense of I don't wait for permission. If I see an opportunity, I'll take it, and you just don't know where things are going to go. And so I think being really open to opportunities is really important. Yeah, so these days I'm a filmmaker. Professionally, I'm a producer and director. I don't get paid to be a filmmaker yet, so I'm working on that one. And I'm an editor and a writer. I do a bit of camera, and I've been an onliner or a colorist as well. So I have a lot of different skills, but they all, to me, build towards the whole of being a good director and a good producer. If I understand all of those different roles, they all, to me, head towards the captain of the ship, if you like, which is often the director or the producer. So I really do enjoy understanding all the craft roles. I don't need to be an expert in them, but I think it's really important to understand, and then you can help work with your crew. You know what they're doing, you know what they need to do, you know what problems are going to happen, because you can see what's about to happen, hopefully ahead of time, and preempt it, and just make a smooth production for everybody. Yeah, so at the moment, professionally, I work on a New Zealand documentary series. It's a primetime show. It's New Zealand's #1 rating show called Country Calendar. It's about farming, funnily enough, and it really is huge. It's a massive show. It beats every other show by miles, and it's just a lovely documentary series. We do 40 episodes a year, and I only do a few of those, and we profile people who are farming. And so we're doing a lot of independent craft skills, if you like. We're writing our own scripts. We go and direct the shoot. We then prepare our post-production script and take it to editing. I do a bit of a block assemble because I like assembling all my interview grabs together, and then the editors finish it off and make all the pretty stuff at the other end as well. So it's a really neat process. It's very much beginning to end, which can be a little bit unusual on TV. So that would be my day job, and I work for an American company doing House Hunters International for HGTV. So that's a really different kind of show. So it's great to have that variety. Yeah, so I started my first short film a long time ago, and it very much was, here we go, here's the SVHS machine. These weren't my ones. I didn't even have a photo of it back then because we didn't have digital cameras, but it was something resembling this. So these are very different ways of working. I say in the 90s, 90s and 2000s, we were sort of phasing a lot of this tape-based stuff out, but it was still very much being used in some of the networks that I worked in. And you had to push play on one, hit record and pause on the other, and on the left-hand picture there you see there's a bit of a controller. I had one of those at one point where you're marking in, marking out, and hitting record. And actually, when I moved to Channel 7 over in Sydney, that's how we were editing the news, was in systems like that, with a different higher spec tape, but the same kind of thing. So you got very good with controlling tape, but tape-based editing is quite different because you have to make a decision and you have to stick it down and you can't change it later. So it's actually a really good discipline for editing linearly, and we didn't have multi audio tracks either, so you had to get pretty good at making decisions quite quickly, and I think that's really served me well, and I know others of my generation well moving forward as well. These days we have a lot of flexibility and you can just go around in circles sometimes, and it's really hard to make a decision. There's a little bit more of the content and things that I've made. So a lot of studio based, a lot of field based. That top left-hand photo is at Channel 7 ATN. That's the news transfer desk, and we would be transferring satellite feeds and footage coming in from Melbourne and Adelaide and Perth and everywhere, and things had to go up and down the pipe, and then we would take some of that footage and edit it and turn it around for the 6 o'clock news and the late news. So that was really fun, actually. It was a really fun time, and really learnt a lot really quickly, and learn how to edit fast, as you do in a newsroom. I still do a lot of courses myself, actually. I'm always learning. I'm doing one this week myself, and I do a couple a year. I've been to AFTAs in Sydney to do short courses, and there's a lot of really amazing short courses that come up. Even if you're working professionally, you can still fit it in around your life. A lot on evening courses, and now that Zoom's a thing, yeah, so many courses are done by Zoom as well, if you can't make it in person. I did a great course at Melbourne University a few summers ago at the summer school, and New Zealand has a lot of great courses that I really enjoy, just upskilling, masterclasses often, and directing and editing and producing, and I'm doing a budgeting course at the moment, and finance. So yeah, there's lots of cool courses. I wouldn't stop learning. Literally, even if you've got a degree in whatever, in their filmmaking or broadcasting, there's so many specific skills which you won't get taught. And I think if you do masterclasses, you can really pick up a lot of those gaps, really, and it just depends where your interest is. I think just keep learning. So there's some great ones like Sundance offer amazing courses online, and you don't have to be an alum of the festival. You can literally buy these courses and just get a different perspective as well. So it's really important to keep an open mind there. if you're interested, as a quick show reel clip here, this is just a broad brush of the kinds of things that I do. And yeah, it might give you a bit of a sense of the variety that I do, opposed to just filmmaking, which would be quite different. Right. So that's a collection of the kind of things I do for work and some of the fun things, which is the film work, which I don't get paid for, but I still love a lot as well. Yeah, so early on, I think I mentioned in directing, I realized that editing was a key part of storytelling, and you don't have to be able to push all the buttons, but to me, the editing is part of the story making. So many people talk about a film is written 3 times. So it's written or made 3 times. It's made the first time when you write it. It's made the next time when you shoot it, and then it's made again once you're in editing. And once all that footage has come together, you're literally crafting it. You know, if you like shooting in the field, it's definitely the most glamorous bit. Everyone always knows those scenes of all the cameras and things, but you're gathering all the material, and it's not a film at that point at all. It's just a whole lot of rushes, hopefully with some little nuggets and some good moments. And editing is about bringing those moments together. So for me, editing was really obvious that, that's where the story was happening for me. And I've never called myself a writer up until recently, really, but I do write a lot, but I think I'm a much better editor than I'm a writer. And I know I can see moments and pacing and timing and putting music in. And so I decided early on to direct and edit together, and I do a lot of those things. Sometimes I'm hired just as an editor, but invariably I get hired as a director who then can edit, or can you edit, or can you direct it, and things like that. So that's actually called a predator, which is kind of weird in the States. So producer editors are called predators, which is kind of fun. It's a really good way of working out what works in the field, and I think that makes me a better director in the field, because you don't shoot too much and you shoot what you need. And when you see a shot coming up and you know what you've just come from, you go, oh, that's going to be a really ugly edit because those 2 shots are the same size and they're looking the same way or whatever, and you know it won't edit well. So I find the skill to me is really useful, because when I'm out in the field, I go, no, let's I need to cut away of that first, and then let's go for a wide shot, or actually I need to go super wide and let's just do a 2 talent talking over each other's shoulders or something. I just know that that's going to cut a lot nicer than doing a whole lot of mid shots or a whole lot of 2 shots. And I just think it works a lot better for the crew. They have a lot of confidence that you go, oh, great, you can see this, you know what's happening. And certainly for television, fast turnaround TV, you've really got to move along. So you don't want to be shooting things you're not going to use. And certainly on a low budget film, you don't want to waste your resources doing massive setups, massive takes, wearing your actors out when actually you can't edit it, or you've already got it. You've already got the one take, and then you go to a slightly different angle. You can only use one of those angles often. So you just don't waste your resources, I find. And as I said, I learned all those skills and all those mistakes. I learned a lot through mistakes, editing my own work. And you go, that was rubbish. Right, I'm not doing that again. Okay. So a good skill. You may not be able to edit your own stuff forever. I've been encouraged not to edit my own things lately, but there are a lot of directors, huge famous directors making films who do edit their own work. So if it's something you're really passionate about and something you're good at, I think definitely work on that. And if it's something you're not as good at, try to pair up with somebody who is an editor, and because both of you are going to be really key to telling the story in post-production. And so you need to understand it, but you don't always have to push all the buttons. But if it's not your field, find someone who is, and then both of you work together to work on that storytelling. And so recently, I guess, as a narrative director, I have had to write my own scripts because I want to get better at narrative directing, and I'm not going to get a job in television or directing a drama without some proof of concept or proof of ability in this field. And so I've had to write my own shorts, which has been great, which I really love. And then you've got to make them, and of course you've got to make them to a relatively high standard if you want them to get the attention of the people you want to get attention of. So in a way, I'm kind of writing my own CV, which is a bit kind of unusual for me. But alongside doing my full-time TV work, I also do this in the weekends and whenever I've got time off. So my first little short is on the left-hand side there, and I just called Homeschool, and we did that in lockdown. New Zealand was in our complete lockdown, and 48 Hours Film Fest came around, and everybody had to be at home that year. No one was running around the cities they were in with all their gang of film friends, and I went, oh, this is quite cool. Actually, this might be quite a level playing field. Everyone's stuck at home with very limited resources. So I had a DSLR camera because I'm a stills photographer, and this camera took video. I had some kids. I live on a farm, so I had some animals and some nice locations. And I spent a day filming with the kids, and it was pretty hard work, to be fair. It was raining, and there were animals and children, and I sort of gave up, actually. And on a Sunday morning, I thought, oh, this is rubbish. This isn't right. And my husband was really kind. He encouraged me. He said, no, just cut. You've done it. Just edit it and get it done. You can edit this by lunchtime. So I knocked it out pretty quick. My sound friend, I sent it to him, and he just did a quick pass on the post-production sound to tidy it up, sent it back, and we submitted at 5 o'clock and put it in. And I thought nothing more of it. And then 2 months later, they were announcing the finalists, and on TV, it was screened on our national broadcaster. And yeah, I was a finalist, which I was really honestly astonished at, because it was not of great quality for me, and it was pretty rough. But the idea was kind of cute, but I couldn't really execute what I wanted. But I think, and when we ended up going on to win Best Family Film, which was really lovely, and I was so surprised. But what I took from that is, don't knock your own work too hard as well. I mentor another filmmaker, and he's a little bit hard on himself, and he doesn't want his first film, no, he's throwing it in the bin, doesn't want it to be seen. I went, no, put it out there. You never know. And it all helps you grow as well. And so from that film, I then wanted to make something much bigger, and I went on to do Milk, which is on the middle, and I had very lucky to hire a lot of or bring in a lot of my film friends, and they very generously gave me all their time, and the camera was donated by amazing friends at the Gear Room, and we got a location and camera crew, and I rallied all my community together to make this film, which was really amazing. And then just recently, I've just gone on to make the third film, and that one was self-funded, but I really wanted of a high standard. So I still had to bring in all my friends again, but just had to work really hard at trying to pay people as well as I could, have good resources, good catering, look after everybody, don't be too unreasonable on the hours and things like that. So that's sort of the part. In 2 years, I've gone from making it myself, doing all the gear, to then my last crew had 45 people. I think I had 20 on set on the day, but the whole crew was 40 all up. Versus Milk only had probably 8 of us on the day, and maybe 15 people in total. So they've actually exponentially grown quite a lot. But there's that pathway in 2 years, actually quite nice to look back at that. I hadn't really thought about it in that way before. But if you are doing your own work, starting at the script, obviously, we know the story is the story. It's really important, but it's actually the hardest part. What are you going to say, and what are you trying to say? And so if you're not a naturally strong writer, it's really hard to know what the idea is. And what is this film about? Someone taught me recently, if you can write a concise logline, it's called. So if you can write 2 sentences about what this film is, then you know what it is. If you are struggling to explain what your film is in 2 sentences, you perhaps don't know what it is yet. And I think that was actually really good advice. And so when you submit to festivals, you need to actually write a log line about your film. And that's, you have to do it as your little billing. And if you can't do that, you go, crikey, maybe I still don't even know what my film is, even though it's finished. So it can be quite cathartic and a really good way of really summarizing that down. If you're going to write it, what is this film about? Then you could start to go, what happens in my film? Okay, what are my scenes? And then you go, what is the action? And then you go, what is the dialogue? That is actually the last thing. You really need to work out what the story is. So I think in terms of writing, you don't have much time in a short film. You don't have much time to set it up or pay it off. And a lot of writers, they make it way too hard and often very complicated to get to the point. And so I think shorts are really great if they're actually short, 5 to 8 to 19 minutes. I've seen quite a few longer shorts in the 20-minute range, and they can be quite a chore sometimes, unless it's an amazing story and you've got all these resources. It's really hard to carry your production values often to the end. So really think about 5 to 10, I think is the sweet spot. And so if you're writing a script in the proper format or in the usual format, that's going to be 5 to 10 pages, 11 pages, something like that. 1 minute of script is 1 page. Sometimes you can if someone else can edit your script for you, get them to have a look at it. And if they read it and they go, they've got any advice, some advice I gave to a filmmaker was, God, your end scene is really good. All the stuff up to the beginning, you kind of don't need it. I think it's a lot of preamble. That's your backstory for your characters, but let's not put it on screen. Put all your efforts into your final scene. If that's what the film is about and that's all the resources you've got, really keep it concise, try to get it down because you just don't have being a short filmmaker with low budget or no budget, you've got to use your resources really wisely. And another big part of festivals is the longer films are really hard to program and they're really hard to slot in. And especially if it's not a virtual festival, if it's a physical festival in a cinema, if they're trying to program 15-minute shorts, they want to make the really good ones get it to screen, because 15 minutes is a long time out of their 2-hour schedule that they might want to show. So if you can do sort of 3, 4, 5-minute ones, you're much more likely to get into festivals as well. Still has to be really strong, but I think you'll have a better chance. And my Milk film particularly, that traveled really well, and that was only 5 minutes, and I think that had a lot to do with it as well. Right, so the other way to think about story is reverse engineer it. So think about what have you got available and how can I reverse engineer it? Do you know a fireman? Can you borrow a fire truck? Do you live in an interesting place? Are your friends related to someone famous or interesting? Or what access do you have to things? Literally make up a list of all the things you know you have at your fingertips and then work out a story from what you can use. I wouldn't make a set, so I would always try and find real locations. You're going to spend a lot of money and resources trying to build a set that won't actually look that good. The proper film crews, they have amazing art department and lighting, and so they can make a fake thing look really good. It is hard to make that look good if you don't have all those resources. So find a real location. There's awesome locations. You can make the dingiest thing look cool if that suits your story. And so make a list now, jot it down. I often do this when I'm really at a bit of a stuck and I'm trying to write something. And so my list, I had a farm. This is for the homeschool particularly, and Milk. I live in a small local village, which I knew would look really pretty and had a lot of really cool people. Great community. I knew I could rally together people who'd want to come along and play for a day. My daughter Charlotte is an actor, and she was showing some promise in those early days. So I went, okay, well, I think she could do this. Have I got some other actor friends? Do I know other people on screen? I had a camera in my cupboard. I went, okay, great, I can do that. I need to get a different microphone and make that look a bit better. But funny enough, I do have a fire truck. My friend is the fire chief. So I went, okay, if I needed a fire truck, I've got that. So it was things like that. You just go, what is my list? And then you go, actually, I wonder if I've got a story about a child in a truck who's on a farm. The story might even come out of the list that you make. So I found that a good way to think about things, especially if you're a bit stuck. So the Milk film, this is the one that's been traveling for the last couple of years around the world. And that was a real community story based in the village, which my daughter, Charlotte, goes to buy something from the shop, but then decides to do an act of kindness instead and use her money to help someone in need. So I needed to find 2 other actors and decide on which location to use. So the first cafe I went to, where I get my coffee every day, and they're great, I approached them and they said yes, and they'd never done anything like this, and they happened to be closed on a Saturday, Sunday, have the whole building. That was pretty amazing. And then actually I cast Christy, who's the lovely shopkeeper there on the right-hand side. I cast her as the main actor because I saw how she deals with customers. And I went, I think she could do the role. I think she can act in this role. It's very similar to herself, so it's role playing. And I asked her, and it was beautiful. It was the most wonderful performance. So I was really happy with that. And then I went to a talent agent who I knew, and I said, look, I'm doing a low budget short film. I've got no money. Do you have any older gentlemen actors who might be interested in coming along for a day to do a film? And so she went through her list of people, and she said, yeah, here's a dozen people. Have a look at their profiles and see what you think. And I reached out to one of them, and he had retired from acting, but he liked the story, and I made it really easy for him, and he came over for the day and filmed, and it was fabulous. So you never know, there are different ways to get things. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be your mum or your uncle. If you can, try and get an actor but you don't have to know them. There's lots of ways to reach out, but I recommend at least getting one professional actor, and that will bring everyone else's level up as well. Because essentially I had two non-actors and Frank, who was a professional actor, and that was great. And the casting, they gelled together really well. I just knew they would work together, and that's the real key of casting. But we cobbled a lot of things together. We borrowed, we asked for donations very kindly of our community. A lot of the wineries in town gave us a couple of bottles or half a dozen bottles of wine each, and then I could help pay my crew, and thanks. The local cafe neighborhood gave us coffee. The little pizza gave us pizzas for dinner one night. So we just reached out. It was no hard sell, but just asking, we're making a film, would you consider donating anything in kind? And everything goes a long way. And we gathered quite an amazing list of supporters in the end, and that film would not have been made without the community buy-in that we had. And I had a lovely, amazing Jane, my producer there, in green jersey and Oregon orange pants, and they're very good at talking to people. And as a filmmaker, I find it really hard to go ask for things for me personally, but I asked them to do it, and they were great at that. And sometimes a little bit of separation can really help, actually. But if you know what you're trying to make, you're really passionate about it. No one read the script prior, no one who donated read the script. I didn't need to give them the script. They just knew what I was trying to do, and they liked the idea roughly, and that was all they needed. So yeah, I think people are willing to help. You just need to often ask, and that's actually really hard to do, though. I know for Kiwis and Aussies, we're not very good at that. But you'd be surprised where you could get things from. If you want to watch the final film, I can play that here for those who haven't seen it.
$3. Yes.
Busy in here today?
Always. 5:20, please. Declined? Did you want to try another account?
No, I've only got the one.
Come and pay tomorrow?
My pension day is not till next Tuesday. I'll just take the bread.
Take the milk as well and we'll sort it out later.
No, I couldn't do that, no. Anyway, black tea's not going to kill me, is it? $1.80?
Thank you.
Is this enough? It's all I've got left.
That's exactly the right amount. You're so sweet. See ya.
Bye. Excuse me.
What?
Got your milk for you.
Milk for me?
Yeah, you needed it.
I did. I did need it, that's right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
So that is on scorpio.co.nz /milk. And I think the Regen Festival will have it playing virtually as well. And you're very easy to find these days. So hopefully you can enjoy that on Vimeo and YouTube. Yeah, so that film was shot on a professional cinema camera. So I was very lucky to know a lot of really amazing people because I've been in the industry a long time. And my DP, John O'Drew, we'd worked together years ago on a kids show. And so he brought in his friend Ollie, the gaffer, and we asked our other friend at the gear room if we could borrow their Sony Venice camera, which is like a proper cinema camera, and they were so generous, Nick, to give us that. And then some other friends turned up and they filled up their van full of lighting gear, and my friend Joe is a sound recordist. And so we brought together a lot of really amazing friends, but the rest of it was all community based, you know, everyone in town who wanted to help out. And often, even if you know someone who's in the industry, you could just ask, you know, they can only say no. And if you try to keep it simple and keep it down to a 1-day shoot or a 2-day shoot, and maybe you only use that person for one of those days, just think quite sparingly about how you're going to use your people. You know, you can't wear everybody out. But I would, if you can, try to get the most experienced, skilled actor you can and crew that you can afford, or convince somebody to do it. It's really cool with friends, but if all of your friends don't have any skills, that's going to be quite hard work. I think you'd be better off hustling a little bit of money together and try to pay at least 1 or 2 people who are professionals, and that'll just bring the whole level of your film up to a huge thing. I mean, that's my opinion. I love people who can make things at home with nothing. It's just incredible. I guess I'm coming from a slightly different perspective. I need these products to look pretty good because I'm trying to get a professional job out of them. So I guess my motivation's a bit different, but it is yeah, those production values, good sound, good pictures, but good sound is a lot more crucial than you think, actually, for carrying a film. If you've got bad sound, but it will not carry good pictures. So really spend a bit of money if you can on recording good sound and then hopefully finishing it. And I think you'll go a long way with that. There was literally only sort of 5 of us who are professionals making this, but it was such a cool experience. They're dear friends now, and I think that is just absolutely joyous, that moment where you can work with friends to do something and that everybody's in, you know, everyone's in, they're only focused on your job, and you just get the most wonderful product out of that. So I was very grateful to all my boys there, particularly who helped me make this. The latest film I've made is called The Policies, and we just shot that last month. That's still low budget. It's self-funded, so it was expensive, but had no other kind of financing or funding attached to it. But I'd used up all my free favors, so with the Milk film. So I had to pay my friends and get them to come back because they're all working, and I couldn't ask them to do another freebie weekend for me, and that was totally fine. But the crew was double the size this time, and so I was bringing in new people, and I also didn't feel comfortable asking to work for nothing. And it was 3 days, in fact, that shoot, and that would have been a big ask. Everyone's working full time, and there's a lot of films on at the moment, so I knew everyone was really busy. And so I really wanted to pay for that quality as well. So I still approached a lot of businesses, and Origa and Jane, my lovely friends again, helped me out with that. We've got a lot of alcohol and coffee and food. We've got locations for free, and my dear line producer Rose was incredible at helping me pull all these things together as well. But I did ask actors, I did pay the actors this time, and I went through 2 different agents and gave the brief of the character that I was looking for. And I did kind of know who I wanted, actually. So it was a matter of asking the agent whether they would consider asking their client if they would work on this show. So again, just ask. You just don't know what they're going to say. But I had a very professional actor, basically our lead, if you like. He has been in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and a lot of big films. And number 2, James, had done a lot of big work as well. And I was pairing it with a young girl again, not my Charlotte, another wee girl called Amisha, and she was only 9, and had done a bit of commercials and bits and pieces, but this was a fairly big role for her. But having the 2 professional actors and the young child who was relatively new was huge. That made a big difference. And suddenly having a named actor, I think it also helped to attract a lot of professional crew as well. They went, oh, right. Oh, okay. Jed's in it. Oh, that's pretty cool. And so the things sort of go chicken and egg. We had amazing DP Bevan there in the middle, and he is awesome, and he's real deal huge. And so our other crew went, oh great, if Bevan's shooting it, yeah, we'll come on board. And so those kind of things work really cohesively together as well. So that film was an absolute joy to make. Some of my same crew from Milk turned up again, which is always a good testament. If you've hopefully treated them well the first time, they'll come back again. But really, really fun. So that's a kids film that'll be coming out next year. So hopefully you get a chance to see that. So preparation in a low budget film. Sorry, I've taken a long time to get to these points, but it all kind of links in together. But low budget and certainly big films, prep is key. So you can't afford to waste time on the day, and so you need to make sure you're well prepared before you shoot, so it goes smoothly. So if you don't waste time, everyone knows what's going on. For both films, I did a comprehensive storyboard with the DP, and every shot was mapped out, more like you would do in a commercial. You don't often do this in a drama series, but because we had very limited resources, not much time, I needed to know what shots we were doing, and then the lighting guys could work out, well, can we do it in this order, please? And then the camera guys go, well, here's the gimbal, I need it in that order. So it really helped everybody set the order of the day, because we couldn't muck about, basically. So once the storyboard was done, I then go to do a shot list, and that center frame is actually a still frame from a film. And there's some websites you can get all these shots from, and I went through and grabbed all the photos that inspired me of looks that I liked, and that helped then form the shot list, if you like, as well. And some people draw them in storyboard, and that's fine. I actually think grabs, photos or still grabs from films are way more useful, and it's much more active. You can draw this really pretty picture, but that picture isn't what's going to end up on screen, often even nothing close to it. But a frame where everyone can look at it and go, oh yeah, right, now I see what you're trying to do. Okay, cool, let's go do that. So I made a shot list in an app called Shotlister, and that's just on my iPad, and I could pull all these frames in. I had the descriptions of all my shots, and then my AD Laurie, she picked up that shot list and made the schedule. And so then the schedule gets completely rearranged. We shoot out of order for what is the most efficient based on the resources, the actors, the light, and the equipment. And there's decisions to be made about what priority you do there. And on the right-hand side there, you can see the schedule. And that was our shooting order. Every single shot was broken down to add one number and one letter. And then that got rearranged on the day to be as efficient as we could, so we could move through as quickly as we could. So a little bit harder on the actors, particularly because we were jumping around line to line all through the script. But they weren't long runs. So I felt that was a reasonable compromise, and being professional, they totally got it, and they were happy actually not to overshoot. And they said, oh, if we're not running the whole scene, that's great, just tell me the section we want. We went, great, let's do that. So if we look at the Milk film, this is, you won't be able to hear this, but that's okay. I'm just going to talk as we're playing through it. This is the storyboard versus what we actually shot. So this storyboard was made in another app by my DP, Jono. And very similar, he'd never been to this location, but I had, so I took photos and sent them to him. And we didn't storyboard these shots, so this was just a montage that I knew I needed to get for editing on the day, and turned out to be vital. I used every single shot that we did. But that's one of those skills in editing, I need montage shots. And then when we get into the film proper, so you'll see that nearly every shot is pretty close. So there's I used every single setup that we shot. There was no framing we didn't need, because I knew what we were going to use. The blue bench you just saw in the credits was actually just a few seconds of an empty frame from when the coffee cup was being moved out from the montage shot. And I went, oh, that'll be really nice for a title. And so I slowed it down, reversed it, played it forward to give myself a bed of frames to put the credits on. I don't like white text on black, so I wanted to make that look really well designed. So yeah, every shot is kind of being used. You can see the direction, the arrow there. We knew that she was going to be running that way, or the camera might be moving that way. With this one here is the gimbal's moving one way, and yet the actors are moving another way as well. So there's all these kind of little discussions that you and the camera person need to have about what is it going to look like. I like things to be moving. You know, I don't like too static a shot. Static's easy and it's certainly cheaper, but it looks a lot nicer when things are moving. So if you want to move, what are you going to move it on? Are you going to make a homemade dolly? Do you have a little Ronin gimbal or something? How do you get that nice movement? I just think it makes everything come alive. So it's really important if you can, and you can find a way to get things moving. And so all this framing here, you can see all three. That's very much bang on. The profile is exactly the same. So we'll move on to the next wee section here. Then you need to celebrate. Hopefully you've made the film, you've edited it all, and it's really nice to pay it back to everyone who helped you. And if you're in a local community and that community's helped you, somehow find a way. We had a lovely boutique cinema in Martinborough called Circus, and they're not Rialto or Hoyts or a big chain. They're privately owned cinema, so they can do what they like. So Tim there offered us both cinemas actually, and we kindly were sponsored by Agri Academy with some alcohol and food for the evening, and we invited everyone who had participated, as many of the crew as we could, and all the local supporters. And it was lovely. It was such a nice celebration, and it was a bit like a mini film festival. We had some speeches and run the film. We actually played it twice because the film's only 5 minutes, and everyone wanted to watch it again, so we played it again, and everyone's laughing and yahooing away and cheering, and it was such a really joyous moment. So I would definitely encourage, find a way to do that if you can, even if it's just in a school hall, and you get the projector up and have a couple of bottles of wine or something if you're old enough, and really celebrate the film, because I think that's really important. And you're making it by yourself a lot. You know, you've been at home beavering away, but you actually do need to share it, and you want to not for your own ego, but you need to share it back with the people who've helped you. So I definitely encourage you as much as you can. So then after you've done your cast and crew screening, and you haven't put it online, it's not on Vimeo or YouTube, and don't put it on Facebook yet, you can then start thinking about film festivals. Generally speaking, once you put your film online, you are automatically disqualified from a lot of film festivals. So really think, if this is something you want to do, not all films are suited for this way, and you may not have made the film for a festival. You may have made it just because I want to put it on Facebook and show everybody. That's cool too. But if you have a plan and you want to go to festivals because you want more recognition, or because you want some laurels, or because you're trying to work professionally towards some goal, then festivals can be a really good route. So cast and crew screening, that doesn't count. If you've done that in public, that's okay. So that doesn't count as a public screening. You've really got to think about what you want out of this film and what you're trying to do with it. What kind of film is it, and where is it likely to sit best? Was it designed to show in a certain kind of festival, or was it made to be shared on socials, i.e. short and sweet or funny? You know, comedy goes well on the social medias. I'd never done festivals before for my 2 shorts. I've done years and years of TV, but we don't do festivals. We deliver the tape, it gets put on air, and we watch it on the TV. So this was a different process for me, and I've really spent 2 years digging in pretty deep on this. And I had some advice from a festival director in New Zealand about just how to start, and then once she got me going, then I kind of figured out, and I pretty much built my own sort of strategy from here on. But this was Show Me Shorts. This was an Oscar qualified festival in New Zealand. Our main shorts festival. It's very professional and amazing festival, and it's all shown around the country. And so Charlotte and Origa and I went down to Christchurch for our particular screening, and we had the Wellington, they had the big opening night as well. It was really, really fun. So it's a wonderful thing to do with your cast and crew, again, if you can, and just really good for networking and meeting other filmmakers. So I definitely recommend it if you want to go on that journey. The portal, how you do it is you sign up to these websites, you load your film, you put your bio and your photo, you write your log line, that thing we talked about earlier. You need to have a synopsis of the film and you put it all in. But once you've done it once, it's done. And then you can start submitting to festivals. So festivals go to these platforms to then go, right, what films are out there? What do I want to curate into my festival? So these are the top 10 from a Google. But from my experience, Film Freeway is the best one. Film Freeway is very professionally done. The site works really well. It links well. Some other sites are pretty shonky. So I think Film Freeway is really good. Festome was one I had used, and Short Film Depot. There were two other options. I needed to do all three because not every festival goes to every single platform, and there were some festivals that especially the European ones like Short Film Depot, which is more French based, and I think Festome is French as well, but Film Freeway is based in the US, I believe, but it's very wide reach. You're going to get 90% of most festivals through there. So you set yourself up a profile and it looks a bit like this, and you basically build that world, and you're very much turning into a marketing person at this point, and that can be quite hard. So but the big part of pitching, or I guess promoting your film, is the key art, is the main photo you have got. And you need to get this while you're filming. So a screen grab of a film isn't really going to cut it. So the photo here you can see of little Charlotte on the milk poster. I went down to the square. This was months after filming, shot her sitting on a park bench, and I filmed it. I shot the photo in portrait frame because it needs to be a poster frame, and I also did some widescreen because I have to do thumbnails, which are always 16:9. So film it, do a shot in portrait with your actor. Now the best time to do this, of course, is when you're filming, when you've actually got everybody. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, this is your Film Freeway profile. As you see, you set up your own account, you put all your details in. It's really secure. I wouldn't be worried about that. And you need to have lots of behind the scenes photos if you can, and lots of photos of actors and what the film looked like. So if you've got, while you're filming, if you've got someone who can do that, that is fantastic. So posters, you need to make a poster. I'm not much of a graphic artist, but I've shunked together a couple of things, and on the last one I again paid somebody and had a good friend who's a graphic artist, and he made one. But this needs to be in poster format. Don't worry too much about the specs of it. You can Google that, exactly what it needs to be, but because it's not a feature film, we don't need to worry too much, but it does need to look like this. This is basically your key marketing asset for short films. They all want this on their front page. When they promote their film, they'll put your poster on their page. So you do need to make a good job of that if you can. As you see in homeschool, I only had 2 screen grabs because I didn't even think about it back then. So those are 2 screen grabs from the film, and I've just chopped them together, and it's pretty ugly, but that was what I could do. Milk, I obviously filmed Charlotte down in the square, and I left lots and lots of headroom because I needed all that text to be able to sit above her head. So I actually filmed it really wide and then cropped it in and brought her down. So as a photo, it looks really weird, but when you start putting all the key art on it, that works really well. Policies to the right there, that's just a whole lot of individual little assets, and our main character is a puppet, and he was just shot against a black background, and I just clear cut that out, and he's just composited onto there. So there's different ways to do that. Key art, this is what I just touched on earlier, is when you're filming your film, this is when you need to film these shots. You've got all your actors there. They are made up. They've got their makeup. You've got a hair and makeup there, but you're too busy making the film. So you need somebody else to go take those photos. So all these photos you can see there, the puppet one particularly, is the boys, they're operating the puppet. I then cut and photoshopped and painted them out, but that is the frame that we used on the Spoo poster. So it can be as simple as that. You're just making a lot of work for yourself in Photoshop, but that's okay. If you've got those skills, that's awesome. You can see those 2 shots of Charlotte there, all that headroom, all that clear space, because I knew that's where the text was going to go. So unfortunately, we have to think about these things, and marketing is a big part of getting a film out there. If you think about big budget films, you can have a $100 million film. They spend $100 million on marketing, which is amazing, but that's how much it takes to get it out to as many people as they can to then recoup obviously all the money that it costs to make that film. So marketing, even though we all love the process of making films, unfortunately marketing is actually longer. I've spent way more time, oh God, I can't even imagine how many more percent time in marketing than I have actually making any of the films I've made. So as much as I don't like it, it's still really necessary. You still need to do it. So here is all the bits and pieces you need, and you get back onto Film Freeway again. There's pages here called Project Marketing, and I would actually recommend it. Don't spend too much on this. Down here, I think $35 is one of them. Oh, that's per day. I wouldn't do that. I think I bought a one-off. It might have been $50, and that they pushed your film through all their festival networks. And I then got a lot of emails with waiver codes back going, 50% off or 80% off. Some of them are festivals you don't want to enter, so you need to be quite careful about that. But it is actually, you need to sort of start. And so that can be quite a good way to buy that little bit of marketing. Just see what comes in. You'll get a feel of, are those festivals right for me? Your inbox will be flooded. My inbox, I get 100 a day probably. I'm pretty full on, so I need to start thinning that out. But if you're doing, after a while, you'll do well, hopefully. And in the bottom right corner there, you can see that's your my submission page and my projects page. And it shows how many selections, how many weren't selected, awards, and it just starts to build a profile for yourself. So I find that really useful. And I'm on Freeway. I would check it every second day, pretty much. I'm always doing something on Film Freeway, so I've got pretty good at reading through that. Be careful though on getting these discount codes. There are a lot of festivals. There's tens of thousands of festivals out there. And some of them will give you a laurel for not much, and you've got to decide whether it's worth anything to you. So there's a real trap of spending too much money on these really lower order festivals, but the laurel, the lovely little wing there, whether that's worth it for you. So obviously you want to get into the big festivals. That carries a lot more weight. So it's a bit of a balance. You might need to do some lower order ones to start the ball rolling, and then hopefully that starts to build your profile, and then maybe a mid-tier festival might then pick you up as well. So it's sort of quite chicken and egg through there, but that is, I think it's really good for marketing. You put it on your poster, you can put it on your website or your socials for your film. It's a careful balance. You have to judge it yourself as you go through what is right for you and what is right for that film. What submissions to chase? So everyone wants to get into the big festivals, Sundance, South by Southwest, Santa Barbara, New York, etc. And they are really hard to get in, okay? So you will be probably wasting your money. I know I have, trying to get into these festivals. So, but you want to try. So if it's up to you and you can, by all means do. But that is going to be really difficult. A lot of those big festivals, they are curating from known films anyway. So, if you're a blind submission, it may not stand, it may not go too far. But it's really difficult. You have to judge it yourself there, how much you're willing to spend, essentially. What I would spend a lot of time doing is reading each of the festivals, pick things, and there's just a zillion of them, but get a blurb for that festival. And does it feel right for me? Does it feel right for my film? Is the vibe of the kind of films that they're doing what my film actually is? Is it more women-centric? Is it a kids festival? Do they actually just say we're into horror? Well, don't put your kids film into a horror festival, be harsh on your film, and make a hard list if you can. Again, write down a little list. What is my film and what will it appeal? So for Milk, I had a child actor, elderly actor. It was about kindness. It had some food because it was milk and bread. It was in a village. It was under 5 minutes. It was shot on a Sony camera, so there's some things that like that, and it was mainly made by a female crew. I had 50% of my crew were women, and obviously a woman director and writer as well. So from that, I could extrapolate that I should try children's festivals. Even though I didn't make actually a children's film, it has actually got into more kids festivals than any other kind. So I didn't know that until someone had pointed that out to me, that it was a kids film. It didn't have violence, guns or drugs or alcohol, and it had a child actor. Therefore, it's perfect for a kids festival. I also tried some food related festivals, some Heart of Gold type ones, kindness. And then I deliberately made the film 4 minutes, 59 seconds. So it fits into the under 5 minute sections as well. There's a lot of cut off at 5 minutes, or they call them super shorts. Some of them are around 3, but there's more at 5 than I thought that would work, would make more sense. So again, this 12 to 15 minute one, that suddenly you're in the ballpark of the big dog films. They've got a lot of money, they've got a lot of resources, and you're competing against people who are making professional films if you're getting into those longer ones. So you just sort of got to think quite rationally about, how am I going to do this? I could obviously target women-centric festivals, especially for women directors or writers. There are festivals out there for things shot on a Sony camera or an Oppo phone. There's whole festivals around that, or iPhones or any phone festival. If you're a student, there are loads of festivals for students, which is amazing. Obviously, I can't do any of those. And within even the big festivals, they have a student category. So if there's a big festival that you think you would love to be in, check if it's got a student category, because you're in straight away and you've just immediately removed yourself from all the professional filmmakers, and that's great. And you're then competing with your own age group and similar kind of resources, so that would be really valuable. And then if you can get a laurel from a pretty decent festival because you went in through the student bracket, by all means do that. That is awesome for you and your brand, so you definitely have to do that. And a lot of the student categories have prize money, which is really cool. And they have camera packages and winners packages. So there could be something. They don't often do that in the main areas, but for the student ones, they do. So they really want to encourage students to make more, and they understand how hard it is to get resources. So that would, yeah, I'd definitely have a look into that. There's hundreds and thousands of these festivals. So you just need to start looking and decide. Right, then you hit the submit button, pay a little bit of money sometimes, and then you wait. And that's super hard, and it is pretty soul destroying because nothing might happen for a long time, and that you just have to wait and play that game. So the marketing machine, this is the other part of you, the filmmaker. You need to be a marketeer. So you can make an electronic press kit. These are more for feature films, but depending how good you are at all of this, and if you've got people who can help you, by all means do that. So that's behind the scenes videos, photos behind the scenes, not of all the camera gear, but of the director and the actor or the setup. You know, make sure you get faces is really important opposed to cameras. No one wants shots of a camera on a tripod. They want to see people doing the thing. Poster, you need behind the scenes clips. You can start releasing that onto social media. You need to write your synopsis in a log line, and you need to have your credit list in a document form. You can upload that, and bios of your director, your producer, your writer. If you've got someone relatively famous, you know, you want to push their bio as well. If you can build a website, you can do it for free through Wix or whoever, or if you have a website and you're good at that, make a website, update it with any news, put new laurels on it in any press or any newspaper articles you might have had. Create social media accounts in the film's name, if you can, not your own name, and or link it. It'd be a page linked to you, but you need to start promoting the film as its own entity. I definitely recommend that. Drum up some press, you know, contact your local newspaper. Maybe when you're filming, maybe they could either come to the shoot day and get a shot, or you get a decent behind the scenes photo and then help them write a story. And then that also is a really nice way to repay your community and show, especially if people have helped you, you're helping push their name back out there. So make sure you always give back as much as you can, and always don't talk about yourself too much, but always talk about everyone who's helped you. And certainly people who have sponsored you, you need to repay that. Social media posts is fine, but I think that's more limited in the sense because it's often your own circle and your own friends, and they're going to get pretty sick of you always talking about your film. But if you can do open ones, or you can post on filmmaking sites, but then again, you're only preaching to filmmakers, so it really depends. Social's a bit different for film, I'd say. If you know somebody who does marketing, who is a social media expert, ask them. This literally, someone else would be better at this than you are, and I know it's not my field at all, but yeah, find a friend, and you'll be surprised at what they can, just one little tweak or piece of advice might really help. And then of course you're submitting your film while all this is happening, so you could do it beforehand, or I tend to I might start the submission process, but then I keep building all my assets in Film Freeway, so I keep adding to it as I go. And then once you're selected, hopefully you've got a selection. That'll be the best day of your life. You'll be so thrilled, and it really is fun. And then offer back to the festival. I can do virtual Q&As. I can do any interviews. Happy to do any press. Do you need any other materials from me? Make sure you communicate back with the festival director at that point and be very helpful and open. And if they say, look, we can only do a Q&A and it's going to be at 2 a.m. your time, you go, yep, I'll do it. You make it work, you know. And that is really helpful to then build your brand as well. And just good practice, really good practice at talking about your film and promoting it. You know, that's what you're hopefully, depending if you've chosen to do festivals for this reason, that's kind of why you're there. Not all festivals are the same. And that can be quite tough. There's some festivals out there that are quite happy to take your money and submission, and they might not do anything else. They might not even exist. There's this basically the scam, and some of them will then you automatically get a laurel, so you've sort of paid for it, and it doesn't tend to have a lot of value to me, I think, if you've had to pay for it. But then the festival itself doesn't happen, or they might do a virtual festival, but you can't find it on their website. So again, it didn't happen, and so they take their $15 or the $20 and they rotate these around. Sometimes I'll do it monthly, and often it's the same people running lots of different festivals. So be really careful of that. There's a little button on Film Freeway called Transparency, and you can see which country it has been, who is managing that website. And I would say if any festival has got more than 3 countries on it, be very wary. Some of them have a dozen countries that are managing it, and that just doesn't sound right to me often. So you need to go, is this worth my entry fee? And one, do I want that laurel if I do get it? And is this money actually going anywhere? Is this festival actually even going to happen? A lot of them make their money on the trophies. So yeah, you won, you got best film. The trophy is now going to be $400 for us to ship it to you. And you go, wow, do I really want that trophy? And that is quite a big thing as well. There's a huge market in that. So they might lure you in and it might all feel really good, but then they'll sting you on the trophies. I don't feel that's right for me. So you make your own choice on what you want to do there. Some people have advised me that avoid the festivals that say monthly or awards in the title, or even if it's got the word movie in it, it means it's often not that legit. Or feedback festival, they can be varying. There's some that are okay, but you'll need to read into it and look through the photos. Do the photos represent an actual real event, or are they all just nice glossy shots? If there is no photos in the festival's page of what looked like a real thing, it probably didn't happen. But yeah, go with your instinct on that, and you may have to waste a little bit of money working your way through that, and you'll start to get it. You'll see a pattern emerge, and often you'll see the same kind of names pop up. You go, oh, that festival director is running a dozen different festivals. That doesn't feel right either. So go with what you feel is right, and unfortunately you can often just learn by making a mistake there. I am a bit of a nerd with spreadsheets, and so I organize everything into a big spreadsheet, and you've got to keep track of it. Mine got a bit out of hand, to be honest, so I had to really keep track of it, and I needed to know the date that the festival was on, for i.e. its premiere status is really important. I also tried to keep track of how much I paid for it. That got, after a while I stopped looking at that. I just didn't want to know that number, but it was really good to know, okay, it's happening this month, or I've got 2 on, and then you might be able to make sure, one, if you can sign in and watch the festival, or do a Q&A, or help spread socials. If you can then repost their posts, that helps them. They also see that you're quite active, and that also, I think, goes a long way to helping you as a filmmaker build your brand with these festivals. Hopefully you're in this for the long term and you want to come back and do this again. So yeah, it's definitely keep track of it all. And I decided to do things like keeping update. I would track my social posts, my IMDb updates, which is the Internet Movie Database. That's really good for professionals, and some of these festivals link in through IMDb, and you've got to get on top of it. It gets really out of hand. Here's some more festivals. Oh, this is just my list here. So everything in green was one that I was selected for. Everything in grey is stuff that I wasn't selected for. And I sorted my list by premiere order. So to me, that was quite important, because a lot of these festivals were, right, are we your US premiere? Are we your New York premiere? Or are we, what state are we in? Or certainly Australia, a lot of the big Australian ones, they want the Australian premiere, and only one of them can have it. So you need to decide, okay, your festival's in March, but I'm down here in July. I don't want to wait another 9 months to get into that festival on a maybe. Sometimes you've got to make a hard call. It's better to get the film out there than try to wait for that unicorn festival that you might not get in. It is really difficult, but try and save your world premiere and your country premiere to the highest level festival that you think you will realistically get in. Save that. Everything else can wait till the following year. I've got on my spreadsheet saved to 2024. I'm just going to wait until 24 to then put it in again, because I don't want to blow the premiere for that country. So yeah, that's up to you to use your judgment on that. Oh yeah, here we go, organising my entries. This is just my page so I know what country I got in. I had a really interesting system of tracking which continent it was on, and I realized 75% of all my festivals were from the Americas, i.e. North America, South America, Canada. And that was, I went, oh, that's interesting. So that kind of story is better suited to those audiences. It didn't do well in France or Europe because they like really noir films, and I'd made a heartfelt story, and that didn't do well in Europe. So after a while, you go, okay, well, look, I'm just going to not do the European ones. I will aim more towards Canadian American festivals, because you're just you're wasting your money. The pattern will be the same, but that's if you're into spreadsheets and percentages. And a lovely little selection, Laurel, up there. When these come into your inbox and they come on your Film Freeway page, it's really fun. So yeah, I do love that. It's a bit silly, but it's a bit like online shopping, shoe shopping. I find liking it too. And then you need to start giving thanks, basically, to everybody. You need to give back again to the people who helped you. And remember, it's not just about you. And if you can, thank your sponsors as much as you can. Tag the festival. I make up social media posts. I just do them in the square shape, which suits for socials. I throw the latest Laurel on and I put that up, and I tag obviously the festival. And so the festival director knows that you're trying to promote it with the date. And then I might do one for my sponsors or my film team, or I might thank the camera hire place, or and then hopefully when you get an award, you then start building your brand as well. And this can be quite hard, promoting ourselves. We're not great at it, but unfortunately it is sort of what you need to do. So, but if you've got someone else who can help you, someone who's into marketing and really good at that, get them to do it. It's, if you can outsource any of that and you feel a bit less icky about it, yeah, I would. Hopefully you've got your website up by that point, and you can update it with all the news of what's happening with your press, with your latest laurels. And you also need to update your Film Freeway page. There's a section there for festivals and distributors, and if you can start adding in those. And then I think other festivals either go, oh, you've got a dozen really good ones in there, great, we'll have a look. I think they actually often do that sometimes before even watching the film, just to narrow it down. They've got thousands and thousands of films to look at, so it can really help just build the brand of, oh, this film is doing quite well, let's have a look at it. So I wouldn't discount that. Then at some point, the festival circuit starts to dry up, and it's usually about 18 months after you've started. Most festivals don't tend to take your films if they're older than 2 years. So you've actually got quite a short window to exploit it. And a big part of that was, like I said, not waiting 9 months for your first festival, because you're burning through some of your time. And you can sort of date it in the sense of when you actually finish the film. I wouldn't date it too early. I would always put it into the next year. So like 22 now, this film I'm working on now, I'm actually going to call that a 2023 film. So give myself a bit more of time. You don't want to burn that up. And especially if you're going to put it on IMDb, you don't want to put the wrong date on, because you can't change it. You're then deciding, what was this film for? Why did I do this? Hopefully it was fun, and hopefully you really liked it. But why did I do it? Was it for money? I probably wouldn't make films for money, so maybe do another thing if that's your goal. Was it for self-promotion or to try to get a job? You probably want it to be shown as far and wide as possible, or was it creatively to express yourself with some friends or to have some fun? And all those reasons are totally okay, but you just need to be honest with yourself about what it actually is. And for me, Milk particularly, I chose to finish its festival run after 18 months because I wanted it online. I'd actually had it locked up for a long time. No one could see it. I couldn't show it anywhere. I couldn't put it on my website or share it in socials. So I got to the point where I went, we've had enough laurels. It's been a wonderful experience. I've really enjoyed learning all about that, but it's now time to share it. I was offered a lot of distribution deals, but they weren't going to earn really any money. And it just meant then no one could still see it. You'd have to then go through these various channels to see the film. And I thought, it's short, it's about empathy. I think it will share well, and actually I just want people to see it. And so I chose to put it on Vimeo and YouTube. I entered Short of the Week though. Short of the Week is a really cool festival, a promoting publicity arm of Vimeo. It didn't get into that though, didn't get selected, but I would do that as your last step before you go online. If you do get selected, they will then push it for you, and that's an awesome opportunity. That's really cool. But then if that doesn't happen, it's okay, move on. Put on Vimeo, YouTube, and Facebook, and build up to the date of that, if you like. Do some posts, do some 7 days before we're released online, 3 days to go, and then start to build a little bit of momentum. And then on the day, do a big social media push. Don't just dump the film and walk away. Do put some dialogue up, and then hopefully you'll get some really good views in that first week, and your stats can peak quite soon. And that can really help as well. That might even help other festivals who don't mind if it's online, if they see, oh, you've got some really good views. So it's not wasted. And of course, people can see it. You can make sure you share it, make sure you tag your sponsors and your crew, and get everybody, give them as much chance to make the most out of it for them as well. Everyone wants to get something out of it. But overall, just get out there and start. I think I thought it was impossible to my last film. I was really starting to lose my mind, but because I was doing it all by myself, I nearly gave up many times actually. And I have a coach who helps me keep focus on things, and she said, just pick a date and put it in the diary and do it. And that was actually probably the most profound piece of advice of the whole thing. Once I then knew, right, September 25th, that is the date, and I was 2 months out from that, I went, wow, okay, jeepers, we started. So I need to find who was going to shoot it for me, find my cast, find my location, and then everything just starts to steam towards a date. And you'll be amazed at what happens once momentum has started. You really need to keep going. Asking friends, asking people who are professionals, asking anyone you know who's got a skill, who can help. If they're really good at organising but have never been in film before, well, that's okay, but they've got some great organising skills. They might be able to help you organise the shoot. Catering, you need someone to do food. You've got to look after your crew. So you need someone, right, who can do food for me. They don't have to be a film caterer. Just think a bit laterally about that. But I always liken it to a train. Once the train has left the station, it's then going. and people come on board, and there's a lot of momentum and enthusiasm that starts to build at that point. So you don't need to organise it all in one day. It is a long process, but you do just need to make the first step, and nothing happens if you don't start. So I would just keep going, and no matter what level you're at, and no matter what budget you've got, you can still make something, and then put it to bed and go, great, I made a thing. Now let's make the next thing. And there's a lot of self-motivation required to do that, but I think it's definitely worth it. I just love it with all my heart, this filmmaking luck, and I'll keep going as long as I can as well. But just keep going, I think would be the key take home. Hey, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you to Vian and the RIYFF Festival, and hopefully you guys will learn something from this, and hopefully next year you can submit your films to the festival as well. Awesome. Thank you so much.
And fantastic. That was absolutely brilliant. Can you hear me? Okay, great. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Celia. I have just learned so much. As the festival director, I give you the most heartfelt thanks from all of us at the School Broadcasting Network, and as a collaborative organisation working with, obviously, LA International Children's Film Festival and One Earth Young Filmmakers Contest, and also the NGO International Film Festival. It's been absolutely fabulous to have you and Charlotte with us for the premiere last night. It was very exciting to have you there at the beautiful Alex Theatre. And seriously, that was, I've been completely enthralled the whole way through. That was so amazing.
Sorry, I was talking really fast.
No, you've got so much information to share there, but we do have several questions that have come in. So
great.
I might just start from the beginning. The underwater shots you showed in one of your show reels earlier, there were some really clean, beautiful underwater shots. How do you get underwater shots?
So that was from a Country Calendar documentary, and that was with a professional cameraman, but we had worked that out actually, and that is a really great story. They were freshwater crayfish, which are really hard to find in the wild, and we were in the wild, and the first day we had a crack at it filming in a river, and we had the camera inside a fish tank. So the camera's inside a dry fish tank, the fish tank is then inside the river, and hopefully the level is higher or lower than the fish tank. That didn't work. We then went into a pond and tried it again, and we had to put weights in the bottom of the fish tank to sink the tank down because the buoyancy was pushing the camera up, but we didn't want the water to obviously come into the tank. That kind of worked for a bit, and in the end what we did is we rebuilt it. We went to a science lab that had a giant fish tank. We dropped these things in the fish tank. We got the gravel out of the river that we had been filming in, and let all the water and the dust and the murk settle. That took a couple of hours, and we actually filmed it with a dry camera on a tripod shooting into a fish tank. Wow. Sorry, big cheat there, but that is actually how a lot of natural history documentaries get made. They can't actually film that stuff in the wild that way.
Wow, that's really interesting, because it's that would be, I guess, from my opinion, thinking, well, that would be a really expensive shot, but either way, I suppose,
Oh, and very dangerous and very wet.
Yes,
and I can show you. There's actually, if I go back to my presentation for a moment, I've actually got a photo of it. You may not have noticed it because you wouldn't have known to look for it. But no, but that was. There's always ways around it, and that was a good one of trial and error. I tried it and it didn't. it didn't work the first time, and we spent half an hour doing it. Went, you know what, this is a waste of time. It's not going to work. Let's move on. We'll pick up. We'll try it another way, and just evolve, just adapt. And actually, I did Google how to do this, and someone else came up with that idea, and then that wasn't working either, so we had to adapt that. So
well, it looked very, very genuine. So that was fantastic. All right.
Yeah, it looks good because it was controlled, because it wasn't shot in the
Yes.
wild. That's why it looks so good.
You got those crayfish to perform for you very beautifully.
Yeah, they did, exactly. They were wondering why they were in this tank. Yeah.
Okay, another question's come in. Are there any free sweets that you would recommend for starters who are, young people who are just wanting to get started, and free sweets that you think would be worth
Editing
having
sweets,
for-
you mean?
Yeah,
Or edit
editing,
software?
yeah.
Free? I don't know, actually. There will be. I use Adobe Premiere Pro and Avid, but Premiere Pro is probably my preference these days because it links really well into DaVinci for grading. And I buy that as part of my creative suite. So I think it's $25 a month. And I have Lightroom because I do my photography as well. If you're a student, that student discount is huge on that. It's about 90% off. So I wouldn't. It's a bit of a tough one there. Hopefully your school, if you're at school particularly, they will have be able to do it for you. But no, I can't recommend a editing suite off the bat that would be free. They can be pretty hard work. But then again, iMovie, if you've got a Mac, iMovie, I think it is actually really good. That's amazing.
Okay.
So
Fantastic.
maybe your whatever platform you're on of your computer itself, see what that look through the App Store and see what you can find.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, you mentioned about editing being a really good way. I assume also becoming a director, if you start as an editor, you really do learn a lot about all the different aspects. So would you suggest that if you're wanting to get into directing that you'd learn editing first?
I think at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But then if you're going to be, it depends what you're doing. It depends if you want to get into television. Like television is awesome. It's a job, and you're making content. It's not film, but if you jumped on a film, you would end up in crew, and you would be in the crew, running around in the day, and it's really exciting. But it's a really hard road to get to directing at that point. Whereas in television, you can come in as crew one within a year or two, depending what you're good at. You might actually progress to being a field director, and then you might be a field producer, and then before you know it, you could be program director. There is actually a really good pathway that way. But then editing, if you're at home editing your own stuff, yeah, great. But if you want a job, you could go to a network, and you could news is often a starting point, or program editing where they cut all the ad breaks into the commercials, into the programs that come in from overseas. So there is good ways to begin as an editor, and then suddenly you're in the industry, then you're working, and then you go, oh, now there's a show over there that needs a trainee something or other. I'm going to jump over to there, and then you jump back to here. It's not a be all and end all forever in that one role. So I like editing because I like touching things, and I like computers, and I like running gear, and it suits my personality. But then, it may not be for everybody. If you don't naturally have an affiliation to it, I wouldn't force yourself to do it. But there'll be a lot of people out there who only want to edit, but actually they don't really like dealing with actors, or they're actually a bit shy and they don't think they could be the director, but they're really good at editing. So you pair up with someone. I think it really depends what your personality is. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Now, advice for working with your family. So now Ivy Tucker gave a beautiful Q&A last night about her award-winning film Agricola 7107, and that was about her brother. And she did mention that,
Yes.
basically he didn't want to be in it. He was like, he loves being a movie star now, but it was very hard at times when he just, what are you doing? Why are you in my way, sort of thing. So you obviously working with family, do you have some advice about those sort of tricky situations if you're working with family?
Yes, most people would say don't do it, but like for family and animals. Look, sometimes you have to because it's necessity. Those are the people you know, and they're willing to help you. It is hard though, because you do fall back to the kind of language that you speak to your family with, versus if you're with friends or other people, you're going to be a lot more diplomatic and polite and patient. If you're dealing with your own family, you might snap at them because why don't you just do it? I don't know. I would not do it for that reason alone, unless you can be incredibly controlled and separate in your brain all the people. They are just someone on your crew. They're not a family member. But yeah, look, it's hard. Like certainly working with your child, because I'm always going to be the mother, but then I have to be the director, and I had to speak to Charlotte differently, you know, and I tried really, and it definitely was actually a challenge at time. I really had to force myself to not think of her as the daughter, think of her as an actor. So I think just separating it out in your mind, if you can, and it is hard though, and gosh, if you've got more than one family member around, that can be quite hard too. So, but look, yeah, you got to use what you've got.
Okay, so thank you for that. Now, another question here. Did you learn most of your skills on the job, and how did you get the opportunity to try out each aspect of filmmaking, writing, shooting, and editing? Yeah, and for House Hunters, are there differences in the audiences for New Zealand versus USA?
Yeah, wow.
There are
I'll
two
start with House
questions
Hunters.
there.
That's easy.
Yes.
Yeah. Audience, yes, of course, audiences will be different, the Americans, and I'm not super au fait with what that audience, because I don't watch their television and their ads, you know, you don't tune into it, but we know what the show is. And so it's that tricky thing about not making a show for the audience. You do and you don't. If you start making it for what you think they want, it never really works. You really just have, the show itself has to have its own heart and its own beat, and then people will come to it if they like it. If you start pandering to what you think audiences want, and this is a rule in television particularly, your show just turns into a big muddle and nobody knows what it is. The show actually has to know what it is first. So House Hunters, that show is massive. There's like 100 million people watch that show around the world. It's the most syndicated network show or something in the world, and it's got a huge fan base. They know the fans like that show because they like it. Therefore, we have a template that we follow, and that template works because it works. And so we are making what we know works, and that's as simple as that. But the directing style is quite different versus Country Calendar is very authentic and heartfelt and real, and it's no presenters, no voiceover. It's the farmer telling us their story, and they don't want to be on camera. They don't want to be a reality TV star. They just want to run about, do their farm, and we've kind of asked them, would you mind, or how do you feel about being on it? So they're often quite shy and quite humble. So that's a very different style of directing, and it's a different style of program, but that makes it very popular with the audience here in New Zealand because they know that it's a real show. It's not a reality show, it's really real. So I think, yeah, it's a real tricky one, that, but I know my directing style has changed after doing both those shows. I try not to book them back to back because I'm flipping from one mindset to another mindset. And the craft skills are there, but it's the actual, the style of the program is so different. And then suddenly you're going, oh, I'm shooting that a bit fast, or no, I need to slow down because this show suits that, whereas the other show wants it real wild and fast. So you've got to, it can be quite tiring if you're flipping between the two. That's sort of the difference as a director. And the first part of that, I guess, learning your skills. I guess I did. I just picked it up. I've been around a long time, and I always wanted to be a director, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to be a director. You know, I always knew that's what I wanted to do, and I learned. I got given the chance to be a field director really early, but then I was still a production assistant. I've been a runner. I've started at the bottom. I've made a lot of cups of tea on film jobs. On my first film job, I was a runner, and I was more than happy to do that. And you just pick it up, and then the production manager sees you as really hardworking or someone who's really reliable, and you go, hey, I'm doing another job. Would you like to come on and be the production assistant this time? Or do you want to be a second AD, which is a second assistant director? And that's an organising kind of role. And it's actually about building those relationships. And that's how you can jump from job to job or role to role. I guess as what I dictated to myself was, all right, I do want to be a director and I do want to be a really good editor. I'm going to do some masterclasses. And so I looked at AFTRS in Melbourne University. I've done a lot in New Zealand, Script to Screen and the Directors Guild. And I do masterclasses. There might be a day, there might be a week. And I just go, oh, there's something I don't know much about. I'm going to do that. And you just start building up this bank of knowledge and encyclopedia of things. And then when it came to narrative work recently, that involved a lot of writing, but working with actors. You know, I work with presenters and reporters and real people, which is quite hard to direct real people to act sometimes. But now I wanted to work with actors. I need to learn those skills as a director, how to talk to actors, but how to direct actors as well. What do they need? So I've did some acting classes. I don't want to be an actor, but I needed to know what they do, and I need to understand the vulnerability that they went through. So things like that, you know, I don't think there's nothing better than putting yourself into a vulnerable place when you're learning to go, oh gosh, I didn't realize that. I thought it was all about this, but no, it's actually about that. So okay, yeah, no, you can always learn.
Fantastic. Thank you. Now we do have, I know Dan would like to ask a question. Dan, you're going to unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi, Celia. It's Dan from the Los Angeles International Children's Film Festival.
Oh, Dan, hello.
Hello. Thank you for for such a great presentation. I did want to kind of go back to early in your presentation when you're talking about, basically talking about that you can keep things simple. And so a lot of the filmmakers are in our festival are young, not all. We show films by filmmakers and animators of all ages, but we do get some films from younger people. And sometimes before they start creating their story or their plan, they are intimidated that their film won't be complex enough to be appreciated. And
Right.
that isn't necessarily the case, is it?
No, I don't think so. I think film needs to be quite simple in a way. I think you can make it complex in a feature film because you can develop all those storylines and you've got all this time to build all this thing going on. I think shorts actually need to be simple and they need to have one message or one story or one point. I mean, I may be wrong, but it depends. Yeah, certainly in children's films and those animations that we saw as part of your festival and RIYFF as well, they just had one little message. They built up to it. They showed the problem, and then there's the beat at the end. You know, it's sort of a three beat kind of thing. Yeah, I think simple, but knowing what it is actually probably the key, isn't it? What are you trying to say? Sometimes people write all this waffle, and you go, what are you actually trying to say in your heart? It's not on paper here. What is the thing you're actually wanting, or what's important to you, or what are you excited about? Sometimes that thought won't actually be on the page, but as long as you know what that is, then every decision you make is shaped around that question. Is quite I guess a wee bit deep, but yeah, I'd go simple. I would definitely lean towards simple and execute it really well. Simple idea, executed is the key.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dan. Just one last question, Celia. We can just explain about when you're preparing for a festival about not putting your film out anywhere first. Could you just reiterate that part, why that's so important?
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of filmmakers have made that mistake of putting it online and got a bit excited. It's a bit of a long game, depending if you want to go festivals, of course. So you finish the film, or actually Policies is a good example. The film is picture locked, so it's cut for duration. It's now going to the online and the conform. They're doing the colorist work, and my sound designer is starting on his work. I've already built my Film Freeway page. I've started submitting to festivals that are coming up in February, March, with a work in progress, so WIP version on my Vimeo link. And every week when I get a new version of any little change that I've done, I update that Vimeo link and auto updates. That's a private link, so it's called unlisted. And you can do it with the password if you want, but I just do the unlisted one. Film Freeway has that link, so any of the festival directors have access to that, and they automatically get the new version without even realizing that it might have updated the week before. Because you need to get the timing right. So once you then pick your premiere is going to be your hopefully your world premiere is a really cool one that you can make the most out of. And then the next one might be a state premiere or a country premiere or a region premiere. And it just starts to trickle down and all happens on that date. So the first festival that gets in on the first date, that's stop one on your train stop. If you put it online, you've lost all those opportunities. A lot of festivals just will not accept films that are too old or have been online. So this will take a year. This will take 18 months. Milk took 18 months from when I first finished it and submitted it, like a month later, to when I actually could then wrap up that festival run, put it online, and then watch it go in a different path. So just the festivals won't be able to take it, unfortunately.
All right, that's really, really valuable advice. Thank you so much, Celia. It's been amazing I was just wondering, do you think Charlotte might say hello?
Oh, Charlotte. Is Charlotte there? Come here, sweetheart. It's going to quickly pop in.
Here she comes.
I might have to unblur come right into me, darling, so we can be the same person. There we go. This is Charlotte.
There we are. Hello. Charlotte, wanted to ask you one quick question. How much did you love being in Milk? Was that like a really amazing experience for you? Because that's led to a very big career now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really fun. I just loved it so much because it was just really fun. Like meeting everyone, it was really fun. Since it was like my first one, it was also really cool.
And now you're working professionally, aren't you? From that film as an actor.
Charlotte's a bit shy, but she's got an agent now, and we've done a commercial, and she's on a drama series at the moment, and it might not have been her life goal at the beginning, but I think she's pretty hooked on acting now. So we'll just take it one job at a time and just see where it goes. But yeah, amazing opportunity.
Yeah, we
it's
love
good. Good
Well,
fun.
we want to say big congratulations to you, Charlotte, because that you were absolutely stunning in that film. I think for your first acting role, you were just absolutely natural and perfect, and you've touched so many hearts all over the world. This film has really, it really made an impact, and I think the message that you've conveyed, both to you, Celia, and to Charlotte, in that literally the milk of kindness. I know the double entendre was there.
I know.
The milk of human kindness was just so beautifully portrayed in the entire film from beginning to end. And thank you for bringing it to the world. I know it was a labour of love for you both, but I think it's achieving amazing things, not just from all the awards you've won and the laurels.
Yeah,
I
that
think
doesn't matter. No. Yeah.
no, it's achieving what you intended, which is to have people feel good about their community and about, I think a lot of people may think twice now about, oh, maybe I'll just random act of kindness.
I
Look at
know,
what it can
pay
do
for someone's
somebody.
coffee, pay for someone's
Exactly.
groceries if they're struggling to get the coins together. I think since
Exactly.
COVID, we've had a real
Yes.
awareness of that, and people have been really kind, and I will always do that. I did that anyway, and then it wasn't until I realized actually that's a really powerful thing to do.
Yes.
That's why the storyline came up to me, and I realized since COVID, people were really struggling in their communities. So let's reach out, look outwards instead of inwards.
Fantastic. And did you have fun last night at the festival? It was beautiful to have everyone together, and
totally.
Lovely. Thank
all
you. Shout out
all
to
the performances.
Shout out to the Alex Theatre and to all the young people who performed, and to all the people who were there, and for all the filmmakers. Thank you so much for taking part in the world premiere of the Regeneration International Youth Film Festival. It's been an absolute delight and pleasure to have you both come across from New Zealand. We really appreciate it, and thank you so much, Celia. This workshop is obviously, we're going to be able to put this up online now as well. You have given absolute gems of information.
I hope so.
This would normally be like a short course, what you've just
I know,
shared,
that's why I was talking so fast. There's so much.
But people will be able to now look through it at their leisure and go back and skip over and go back to scenes and write it all down. And you've given so much of your time and yourself to this. We thank you so much. Dan, would you like to give a thank you there from LA?
Absolutely, Celia, just wonderful advice, and I know many filmmakers and up and coming and burgeoning filmmakers, and this is exactly the kind of advice they need. These are the questions that we hear at Q&As over and over again, and now you're answering it for a large audience all at once. It's perfect. So thank you so much, and congratulations on wonderful work you're doing. Look forward to seeing more.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Dan. Well, I'll be sending policies to you as well, so that'll be coming in when I finish that as well.
To it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
We've also got Lisa is there representing the One Earth young filmmakers as well. Lisa, did you want to?
Sure. Yes, I think it was fantastic, and I think our young filmmakers are going to love it. So whenever you get it online, just let us know, and we'll definitely link to it. I don't know if we can put it on our website too, but look,
the more we can share this information, because that was absolutely a fantastic. You've narrowed that down into the essence of step by step. That literally would normally be a course. That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
I feel like it was term 3 of Film 101.
We really, all of us really, so you're now, except for the NGO International Film Festival over in Rome, he's not on board now at the moment, but from all of us in this collaborative event of putting together the RIYFF Fest, we thank you from our hearts and from our countries for you putting such a beautiful presentation together, and for being part of the RIYFF Fest. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Oh, thanks for involving me. Thanks for inviting us in and literally helping us be here as well. And it's just so fun. We haven't toured with Milk at all, so it's been really nice to go somewhere as well. And I just love sharing the message. I think it's so nice, isn't it, when everyone can really take something from that. And I think that goes home and go, oh yeah, maybe I'll think about things differently as well. So I think film is so powerful, and it's wonderful. Absolutely. Do that. So it's been a pleasure to share it with you all. Thank you so much.
And we'd like to say to all of the young filmmakers watching this, you have the power in your hands and hearts and minds to create films and content that will touch other people to think differently about our beautiful world. So the Regeneration International Youth Film Festival is all about celebrating life and what's right about our world and how we can build and regenerate our communities, our body, our mind, our souls, the planet itself. So please, as young filmmakers, think about everything that Celia's now shared with you, and also think about how you can actually be the new wave of filmmakers that bring together films that will nourish our spirit, that will really encourage us to be wonderful caretakers of our planet. We'd love you to submit next year for the 2023 Film Festival. There's going to be that'll be opening in January, so check out that, and we'll put some links in for that. And we'd love you to submit. And there's also going to be a short film competition for students as well. So please join us next year. We'd love to see what you've taken all of Celia's advice and turn that into something really special. Thank you so much for being with us, Celia.
Awesome. Thank you. See you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.